coming in and stuff.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday, August 6th, 2026. Don't know where the time goes, but here we are. We are going to get started shortly. This is the overview webinar for our FY27 Creative Industries Public Development Projects Grant, and it is open to counties, municipalities, tribes, and state agencies. We're going to go over the grant application with you all and then have time for Q&A. Thanks for making it. And we will record and upload this webinar following the conclusion of our time together. Thanks so much for joining us. Good morning, everyone. My name is Shawnee Harvey. I am the Division Director for the Creative Industries Division here at Economic Development New Mexico, which is the state's economic development agency.
Good morning. I'm Arlen Nelson, and I am the Creative Industries Division Coordinator.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us. If you are here this morning, it is likely because you are a partner or an applicant for our Public Development Projects Grant, which is a call for projects that we are building on from 2024 and 2023 from fiscal year 2024. We're going to go over the grant, go over the scoring with you all, and then open it up for Q&A. Housekeeping before we get started, because we are on Teams, there should be a Q&A feature available. If you don't see it at the top of your screen in the little Q&A chat bubble, there is a section that says more with the 3 dots. If you hit that, you should be able to see the Q&A. It's got a question mark bubble, and we have that enabled for you all. The chat likely will not work for this meeting, so please make sure that you put your questions, comments in the Q&A section. And I think that's all we have for housekeeping. Before we dive into the grant application and the scoring itself, I did want to let folks know why we have designed the applications and separated out some of the different entities the way that we have for this fiscal year for the grant programs. And that is ultimately due to local governments, nonprofits, and for-profits having very different operating structures and different ways of measuring success. So what we have done is design the grant programs for the year based around the kind of deliverables and programming often provided by these sorts of entities. So again, this is our Creative Industries Public Development Projects Grant. And in order to be eligible for this application, you must have been a county, municipality, tribe, or state agency that submitted a pre-application for screening by June 30th of 2026. So if you did not make that deadline as a public entity, you will not be eligible for this particular grant cycle and application. We did have that pre-application open for roughly 6 months. So that is what we did in order to screen projects and see what was going on with folks' ideas, how they were in touch with their communities and things before they submitted a project. So this will be adjusted a little bit. This is no longer the pre-application phase. This is the actual grant application. It opened Monday, August 3rd. It will close on Friday, August 28th at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. We're going to go over some of the project uses and submission requirements, and then we'll walk through the grant application. So again, because we want to support local governments, tribal governments, municipalities, and state agencies in designing programming that works for them in their capacity, this application itself is pretty broad and allows for a lot of different project uses because of the way that the work is structured, the time it takes for governments and tribes to be able to receive funding from the state, and is designed with that in mind. So long as projects are strengthening local creative industries, supporting small creative businesses and entrepreneurs, building or improving public infrastructure that's connected to creative industries, supporting workforce development initiatives, or expanding economic opportunity through the creative industries in rural and underserved communities, we will be judging applications and scoring applications based on those pieces. We're going to ask you for a broad summary narrative of your proposed project or projects. Some of the plans did have multiple pieces that they would be funding, so that'll be your space to kind of submit a summary. We're also going to ask for an in-depth plan for your project or in-depth plans, a proposed timeline, any contingency planning or challenges that you foresee, a budget, and then 3 letters of support. A note on the 3 letters of support. We know that you all did gather those for the pre-application phase. So long as your project hasn't changed a lot in scope and in intention of the programming or the project that you're looking at delivering, you are free to use the same letters of support that were submitted during the pre-application phase. So you do not have to go out and do that piece again. Again, we will close the grant application at the end of August at 6 p.m. on August 28th, 6 p.m. on the dot. If you're trying to submit at 6 p.m., it will be closed. So 5:59 and 59 seconds is your last opportunity. Please, please, please do not wait until the last minute. We will likely not be available to be able to help push your application through. And it is good practice to get it in ahead of the deadline.
Please, because definitely, I don't know if 5:59 and 59 seconds would even actually help the application to get put through. So definitely try to work out the application a little bit beforehand. I always say, if you like to wait till the last minute, let the week before the application close be the last minute, so we can actually try to work out any kinks that you may have or help with any questions or inquiries.
Yes. And on the projected project period, please note that although we're running the application now in August of 2026, we're projecting with the scoring, review, procurement process, and actually delivering funding to the awarded organizations. We expect and hope that funding will be in hand by January 2027, giving projects until, that is also incorrect. It is supposed to be 2 years, so it should be December of 2028. Our apologies. We will update that. It'll be updated on the website, but the project period is projected to be 2 years, and that is to give local governments and public entities an opportunity and time to really do a thorough community engagement process, have the time to build out the programming, have time to run their own contracts and RFPs. So again, that is going to be January 2027 to December of 2028. Our apologies that is, we will fix that. So in order to apply for the grant, you will navigate to our submittable portal on our grants page. And you'll see this nifty turquoisey button at the top, apply for a CID grant. That will direct you back to this page, which is our portal for all grant submissions. You'll scroll down to the bottom and you will see the only live project we have right now is for the public development projects. You'll hit submit, and that will take you to the details on the grant application. And again, this restates the same information. So you'll scroll down after you hit submit and it'll ask you to find your organization. If you are not coming up in this search, you can hit skip and continue to the application. You do not have to have your organization listed in SAMS or some of the other governmental listings that are there. You can skip and continue the application, and you will be directed to the eligibility form. This is to ensure that only folks who are qualified for the application are able to submit. Arlen, do you want to talk through these?
Yes. So with the eligibility form, this is pretty much to understand that like this is or was a pre-application for government entities, nation, tribes, and pueblos, county entities as well. So if we have anyone that may accidentally get access to this form and is a nonprofit and for-profit, this would definitely book them out, just because they would not be eligible for the project. It is asking pretty basic information of your government project was submitted in the pre-application phase, knowing that that is one of the main requirements for this grant application. We do not want to see any other government programs that did not make it into that pre-application phase, which was from March 2026 to June 2026. Then we also asked some of our other data-based questions when it comes down to just seeing how have you if you ever visited our creative industries website, if your organizations that ever received a creative industry grant, um, and just under any seeing if your organization also have received any other type of assistance, which could be a partnership, a contract, or some other workings that we've done together, just to understand that if we're not trying to overlap certain things. We don't want to see the same projects that we have funded before getting funding, and we try to make sure that we separate projects for that. And then we also like to take note of if you previously received the Creative Industries 2023 call for projects, just so we can keep up with how many government entities have received some of our funding, what some of their projects look like, and we can keep a good scope of what's going on with the creative economy throughout the state, what other programs and possibilities are happening. And then going even further to see if you've received any other economic development resources such as LEDA, JTIP, or JEDI support with the SBDC or SBCI program, film incentives, tax incentives, and other EDD tax credits and other things like that. Specifically, we're asking about film because based in our statute, as most people know, we say it many times, we cannot service film projects that have specifically been funded with the film production tax credit, but also in general, it's kind of a muddy water when it comes down to what we are able to support with film and video production, knowing that those some things are under, some things aren't. So we try to get a good understanding of what's going on if you have been supported by the film office in New Mexico, so we do not deal with any overlap and we stay within the statute.
Yep, this is our standard eligibility form. Of course, we know that a lot of state governments are likely or a lot of state agencies as well as local governments are not receiving the tax incentive, but we ask that for clarity and also for our record keeping purposes. If you successfully submitted a pre-application, you will be taken forward to the grant application. If you are not eligible, it will display a message that you're ineligible for the program based on entity type or not submitting a pre-application, not being qualified for this particular grant. We do know that there are a lot of folks or entities, public entities that may be utilizing contract assistance or contractors, other folks who are going to support them in the application process. Those external folks that might be helping you put together an application can be added to the grant application as a collaborator, but they may not be the one who submits the grant application. It must be submitted by an email, an account associated with the public entity, and it must be signature certified. So you can add external parties and users to your application who can help you complete the application, drop information in, write responses, etc., but they cannot be the ones to submit your application. Again, submitting the final grant application is the responsibility of that main public entity. So we are going to walk through the grant application now. And again, so long as your projects fall within supporting creative industries through these areas, your project will be eligible for scoring and review and for funding. So scoring. This application is made up of roughly 10 questions and then additional information and general contact information. And those 10 questions or categories are going to be weighted and scored through the following. We're going to be asking you for a project narrative, your plans, expansion. Again, we walked through this list earlier. And again, you can see that the bulk of your scoring is going to come from your project plan, the expansion of existing creative industries, as well as the promotion and inclusion of diverse creative industry sectors and areas by cluster. We'll also be scoring you on these other pieces. So you can see the max amount of points per category. This is out of a total score of 200 for the application. And again, we have a 10-point bump or a 5% bump in place for projects or submission applications that are serving rural and underserved communities. And for division policy at this time, that means folks who are serving people or located outside of the city of Santa Fe and city of Albuquerque. And then you also have your percentage weight if you're wanting to know, how much weight each category holds. Dun, 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 dun. Basic information. We want your main point of contact. This will be the person who is in the public entity that we can call with questions, who will be responsible for overseeing the grant if awarded, and a direct contact there. Please do not include contractors or external points of contact. We need to be able to get in communication directly with your entity if we have questions on the application, or if throughout the grant period we need to get in contact with you. So the first thing we will ask you for is your project narrative. And again, you have the option to format the way that you would like to. You can link to external pieces here. There's a couple of options in here for you, but again, you have 1,200 words maximum, and we would like to know overall on your project, what is the project and its purpose, how it supports creative industries and economic development, how your project will potentially stimulate community or economic development through the support of local creative industries, and where your projects and programs will be implemented throughout the state of New Mexico, and any expected outcomes. Again, this is a place for you to try and encompass that in story in a relatively limited way.
Yeah. And we know most people did submit something similar to the project narrative in the pre-application, so you're more than welcome to use some of the narrative that you already have submitted. Just make sure it's formatted in the right way, because I know we probably gave more word options, or it was a higher word count in the pre-application than that project narrative is now. So it's more of a condensed version, but at what you're doing. And then for the project plan, it is really asking, again, another 1,200 word narrative on how will the funding support the expansion of existing creative industries in your community? What creative industries do you plan to support with funding? Who are your key partners, and what are the expected outcomes? So it's pretty much getting more details on what their narrative really is, what's the real plan, on how you try to work it out. And that question leads right into our next question, which is the what creative clusters or creative industry areas will be served by your projects or programs? So being able to have that multiple selection choice, and being able to talk a little bit more in depth on how are you collaborating across multiple clusters and not just focusing on one singular cluster in your area, because it could be easier to focus, but knowing that a lot of this funding and this focus is to really stimulate the full creative ecosystem that you have in your community.
Yes, and then we will also ask you to expand on this. And this is based on some of the work that was done in the creative industries study, where, of course, we appreciate programs that are focused on particular industry areas, but we also appreciate the opportunity to see a diverse range of creatives being served through your projects. So this gives you the opportunity to expand on that. Additionally, we will ask how you are serving small creative businesses with fewer than 10 employees through your proposed programming or through your proposed project. Again, this is a statutory call out. We are obligated by statute to support creative businesses with fewer than 10 employees. So it's not weighted extremely heavily, but we like to see that there is support going to small businesses through this funding. And then we will also ask you for a proposed timeline or ultimately your project timeline, which can be between 1 and 2 years. Again, we do project that those grant periods will be for a solid 2 years. So you have the ability to add any kind of formatting here to make it make sense. And then if you already have a timeline, you're also welcome to copy paste that into these answers to make things go more smoothly.
Yeah. And then
we'll also go for it.
Oh, sorry. Also think about the next one right after that is thinking about a contingency plan, because as we know, with many big projects, there's always those anticipated challenges that may happen. So we're just asking you to see your foresight on what you see as a possible challenge, and what may be a solution to you trying to overcome that and finishing your project, or just kind of getting it ahead of time so we can know whenever we have our check-ins what we're possibly seeing if awarded.
Next, we will ask you for your project budget. Again, the maximum funding ceiling for this program will be $150,000, and that does not include if you're having any matching financial support or in-kind support that might be included. So the funding that you can request from the division, the max is $150,000, and we are asking for you to submit that final budget as a PDF. We would still like it in a table format so it's easy to read, ideally, but please upload that in a PDF. Again, if you do upload it like that, or you're bringing it over from a spreadsheet, sometimes columns, rows have a tendency to cut off words. It might not capture your full sentence. It might not capture the full numbers. Please ensure that all of the information and details are clearly legible on that final PDF so that it doesn't cut off halfway through a sentence around uses for certain programming, as we will have to reach out to you and ask for an additional copy. And last, again, is your letters of support. We have up to 3 letters of support that you can attach to your application against the prospective programming and projects. You can use the ones that were submitted during the pre-application if they still match the trajectory of the programming and project that you are submitting for. And finally, we have an additional upload. If you want to include anything else, any additional documentation that you feel is pertinent to your application, you have the opportunity to do so in this final area. Again, then we have an e-signature certification. This must be completed by someone who is allowed to make that determination and call for your public entity to submit the grant, to communicate on behalf of the grant, to accept funding on behalf of the state and your organization. So please make sure that this is also, it doesn't need to be the main point of contact, but whoever is certified and allowed to make that call, and that they are an employee of an eligible entity submitting that particular application. And again, you can invite collaborators to this. So if whoever needs to sign off on this is not the main person submitting the application, that's fine. But whoever opens the initial application will also have to be the one who submits it. The collaborators and folks you invite into this form cannot submit the form on your behalf. So again, when August 28th rolls around and it's noon, I highly encourage you all to double check and cross the T's and dot the I's and make sure that this is fully filled out the way it needs to be and signed by the correct person. Again, pretty straightforward. If you have questions, we will move into our Q&A at this time. I would like to note that our grant policies, we will not answer proposal specific questions like, is this a good program idea? Is this a good project idea? We will answer questions more broadly on the application process, questions about scoring, different types of answers, things that you might want to know, but we can't give feedback on whether or not your project is a good fit. We did review all of the pre-applications, and there was no glaring or blaring concerns on any of the projects, only concerns around entities that may have not been eligible submitting. So again, you must be municipal, local, state agency, nations, tribes, and Pueblo government in order to qualify, and have submitted a pre-application in order to qualify for the program for this year for FY27. And you will be scored, the applications will be reviewed out of 200 points in these areas. And beyond that, we are excited to take any questions if there is any.
All right. Okay, I see a question from Stacy. Are we able to work on the application a little, save, and come back to it? I believe saves are, yes, I believe that is in order. You can start working on it and it should save it, and you can come back once you log in. It should bring right back to where you started off at.
Yes, it'll prompt you to create an account, and it'll save your application as you go throughout the process, so you can return to this application on submittable throughout the application period.
And I will say we do that on all of our applications.
And we have another user with the question, just maybe don't point out folks' names.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You're good. If we have a new opportunity that has arisen in the meantime since our pre-application, is it okay to change our scope of work? Yes, that is allowed for this program. And yes, so if the scope has changed, if partners have changed, if something else has come up since that time that your community wants to work on, you're absolutely able to shift that scope of work. We just asked that folks submitted a pre-application, even if they weren't quite sure on what the project would be, so they would be eligible for this grant application. Hey, well, that's pretty straightforward. All right, at this time, seeing that there's no other questions, we will give it maybe another minute. We'll wrap this up. We'll make it available on the Economic Development New Mexico YouTube page. New Mexico Economic Development Department YouTube page that'll be there. We'll also send out an email. And is property eligibility eligible is the other question. It seems to me like that question is around whether or not the purchase of property would be an allowable use under this program. I think what we've traditionally looked at is development of public infrastructure, but not necessarily purchasing property under a capital expense. Land building and infrastructure is an eligible expense under capital outlay. So this would ideally be closing the gap on things that are not covered by capital outlay. Infrastructure, land building and infrastructure outside of things that are covered. So not land building and direct infrastructure. So things that might be updates to when the question is what types of infrastructure are allowed. So we could talk about property improvements so long as land is already owned. Things that might need upgrades, improvements, electrical installation of structures, things like that would be the types of infrastructure. Again, things that are not typically like an ongoing overhead cost. So we're not going to be able to cover like lease payments or things like that. But we will be able to support other infrastructure costs. Whoops. And again, if you could put your questions in the Q&A so we can keep track of them in the main space.
Mhm.
Yeah, in terms of infrastructure development, we have seen folks in the past do improvements on historic theaters, building creative outdoor infrastructure for vending markets, things like that. But these are on places and spaces that are already owned by that entity, as opposed to going and buying new property outright.
Mhm.
Wonderful. All right, everyone. Well, thank you. We look forward to seeing your applications come in. We're excited to fund projects around the state that are supporting creative industries development and programming that you all have already been doing for either a long time or are embarking on something new. This is one of those instances where, because it is a local government and public entity focused grant, we allow for projects that maybe have not been done in the past. We do not have that same stipulation for our other grant programs. And because we built out the project period to allow for 2 years, again, we're looking for January 2027 to December of 2028 will be that process in that time to allow for the best impact possible. Max funding ceiling of $150,000. And if you have other questions, please feel free to submit them to us in writing so we can keep track of them in case we do need to share them out with other folks who are applying for the program. Thank you and happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday.